Hello, and welcome to this month's Urban and Community IPM webinar. My name is Sherry Shook, a Community and Education Specialist with UC IPM. Thank you for joining us today. We are extremely excited to have Samantha Conselman presenting today on the secret life of biopesticides. Samantha is a former biopesticide scientist with expertise in innovative lab-to-field research and a strong background in plant genetics and science communication. She now focuses on translating University of California research into practical guidance that advances integrated pest management worldwide. Samantha connects discoveries with the real-world needs of growers, gardeners, and educators, promoting sustainable, effective pest control solutions. Thank you for joining us, Samantha. You may now share your slides and begin.
Great. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. Well, welcome everyone. I hope wherever you are, your Thursday is going great. A big thank you for having me and spending the next 30, 40 minutes listening, and then hopefully we'll have some good Q&A at the end as well. As Sherry mentioned, where I started as a biopesticide research scientist, we'll get into what biopesticides are in a little bit. I specifically worked a lot in the herbicide pipeline. So those are pesticides designed to kill weeds that we don't want. And at the same time, looked a lot at biostimulants, and those are products that try to help plants grow that we do want in a better way. A lot of my background was on field screening and testing. So today we're going to take a look behind the scenes of what it looks like to develop a biopesticide. I think when you're able, and when we all have some understanding of how a biopesticide is created, that can help you all as users when you're taking these biopesticides to your garden, to your home, to the field, in understanding some of the great benefits of a biopesticide, but also some of the limitations where it may not be the right tool for you at some points in time. So, what the heck is a biopesticide? It is a large conglomeration. There's a lot of them out there now and more in development. Generally speaking, you can think of biopesticides as naturally derived products. And they are discovered in the field or in a walkway. And then there is science and lab work put behind them that shows efficacy and safety in killing target pests. There's two main categories. We'll start on the right with biochemicals. These are your plant extracts, your pheromones, your soaps, and fatty acids. You can think of them as a concentration of what plants are already producing. And it could be plant roots, it could be the leaves, it could be the stems, it could be the twigs. People who are discovering biopesticides, they may notice out in the world that some plants don't have pests on them. And that could be for a variety of different reasons, but one of it could be some of the chemical compounds within that plant that is making pests not be pests to that plant. And that's where biochemical pesticides really shine. Microbial pesticides is where I spent a lot of my time. And our microbes are our fungi, bacteria, virus, and even protozoa. So they are small, minute things often found in soil, but can be on the above ground portion of plants as well. And these microbes, there's two main categories of biopesticide. There can be living microbes, where the biopesticide is alive. It has organisms in it that are outcompeting or otherwise impacting the bad microbes or the bad fungus that we want to kill. The vast majority of biopesticide that are microbial, though, are actually dead. So there is a fermentation that occurs in a lab. And at the end of it, whatever is that active ingredient, whatever microbe it is killed. But what is left in the liquid is compounds that have pesticidal activity. Those compounds can be waste products from the microbes or secondary metabolites that are pesticidal in nature that microbe produces in the wild to ward off pests so it can survive. And then in the lab, we're just helping it produce a lot more so we can bottle it up and spray it as a pesticide. Biopesticides, they continue to be a growing field, a lot of investment going into them. There's a lot of different reasons for it, but in general, it can probably be summed up through sustainable pest management. They tend to be easier and safer to spray for humans, tend to be easier to produce. They have a better safety profile than a lot of what we consider conventional pesticides. And then their ecosystem impact is less. And we'll get into why that is later in the presentation. But biopesticides are being registered at a faster rate now than ever before. And a lot of science and research dollars are going into understanding biopesticides and how they work. So this is just an example of one study really looking at benchmarking and concluding the overall impacts of a biopesticide that was produced. Overall, lower greenhouse gas emissions, lower human toxicity and harmful materials, less aquatic toxicity, and that in sum makes our ecosystems stronger and more diverse. When we have a stronger and more diverse ecosystem, whether it's in the garden or on the farm, wherever it is, we are able to really help make sure that pests don't become a problem in the first place. So biopesticides, they come from the world. They come from the ground. They come from the plants and the air around us. When folks are discovering biopesticide, it's often just a curious person walking outside or scouting around and noticing that a pest isn't growing somewhere. And what we're able to do in the discovery of biopesticides is take samples and start isolating those samples. Because in the wild, it's very likely that there's a reason there isn't a pest, a fungus, or an insect attacking that plant or that compound. In the lab, we start with fermentation and biological testing. And this is where we're taking the microbes, in this case, sometimes our plant extracts, and we are putting some science behind it and trying to uncover, okay, what does it kill? Is it against plant pathogens, insects, weeds, nematodes? And we're getting a profile of what this biopesticide could be capable of. Oftentimes, biopesticides are highly, highly specific in what they target. And as part of the fermentation and biological testing, we're able to understand exactly the full profile. The cool part about biopesticides, and I think the secret life that most people don't understand when we're going through registering them, is as registrants or anyone that's developing a biopesticide, it meets a lot of the same criteria as a conventional pesticide in terms of what's required. So there are safety components that must be submitted, but also efficacy profiles that must be submitted. And biopesticides must have efficacy data that is backing up that this product should be used in these situations. That comes down into our natural product chemistry and analytical chemistry, where scientists are discovering these new compounds that microbes are producing or plants are producing that are pesticidal and are designed to kill. During this process, we're helping eliminate harmful strains that aren't pesticidal and really getting clarification on when a pesticide and when a biopesticide applied right is going to work. So that working broadly comes in two different ways. So biopesticides don't automatically kill everything. They're often highly specific, and they work through either a direct mode of action or an indirect mode of action. So by direct mode of action, we are talking about these first two bullet points, disrupting pest growth or interfering with feeding of, say, an insect. Um, when a biopesticide is applied and is working in these ways, the pesticide must either be ingested or come in contact with the insect, the whatever you're trying to kill. What this also means is if you're disrupting pest growth or interfering with feeding, the biopesticide isn't often immediately going to take effect. That insect or pathogen needs to either starve or not be able to grow anymore. And both of those modes of action take time to manifest. In the indirect mode of actions, a biopesticide will be outcompeting harmful organisms, so helping the good things that are often in our soil or around our plants, helping those thrive. And in them thriving, the pest pressure decreases. Or they may activate plant defenses. Similar to us, plants have an immune system and a couple different pathways. And there's some compounds in many biopesticides that are helping activate that immune system. So you can think of it as when you think you have the tickle in your back of the throat, that you may take a little bit of extra care of your body. You may take some vitamin C, any homeopathy you want, drink some extra water. We have biopesticides that help activate those plant defense systems, just like those do in your body. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But the modes of action, specifically saying modes there, because it's very rare that a biopesticide has just one way that it is working. It isn't you do X and the pest dies. It is you apply it, there's multiple things happening many times, and then the result is pest death after a certain amount of time, not necessarily immediately. And so this is the sciencey part. So hold on for a second while we go through this graph. What we're looking at is the inside of basically two different pesticides. And one of these graphs, A or B, is a biopesticide, and another is what we call a conventional pesticide. Your X's and Y axis going down aren't super relevant to this discussion. What I hope you're noticing off the bat is these different, they're called peaks. There's different peaks happening on the A graph between 2 and 3, 3 and 4, and then 4 and 5. And then on the B graphic, there's a lot of different peaks, and they're coming around 4 to 6, going from left to right. But a lot of different peaks, and those peaks are at quite a few different heights as well. Each of these peaks is actually what is going to contribute to pesticidal activity in either a biopesticide or a conventional pesticide. When I'm considering what kind of pesticidal tool to use, it's never which is better. Oftentimes, it's which pesticide is going to fit the issue and the problem that we have. It's also considering this is where your multiple modes of action are coming in. So this A graphic is a chemical profile of about 3 different conventional pesticides. And what we see is these huge peaks. So this is like a compound you would see these huge peaks, and it's pretty, it comes all at once, it goes up high and drops low again. That is something that's causing a pest to die. Similarly, between 3 and 4 and 4 and 5. In the B graphic, this represents a biopesticide. So this is your naturally derived product, specifically a microbial pesticide that this microbe produced a whole lot of things in just living life. It's producing waste, it's producing metabolites, it's producing compounds. And each of these compounds is going to contribute to the pesticidal activity modes of action. So one may be activating plant defenses, another may be impacting insect growth, and another may be doing something completely different. And what we are looking at in the lab is understanding what these compounds are, how they work, sometimes trying to increase a compound that the microbe is producing, and sometimes saying, we don't know what this small little peak is, but it's part of what nature has designed, and we're just putting some science behind it to help that microbe help us kill the pests. Why this all matters and kind of understanding the discovery and some of the science behind it is because when you understand that, then we can start really going in. It's not biopesticides are better or worse or whatever it is, but biopesticides are a tool in your toolbox that can be used when the time is right. Where you find biopesticides, this is actually from my local garden center, the photo on the right. Not everything in this is a biopesticide, but there's a lot of biopesticides at my local garden center and online retailers. Guarantee that you've seen some before. Some specific ones that are very popular with a lot of science behind it is the bacillus, or BT, spinosad, neem oil-based products, and a whole host of beneficial fungi. You can pretty much bet that if you're looking on a label at your garden center and the active ingredient is italicized, that is a living or that is an organism. And so that would be a biopesticide. I think there's a misconception sometimes. A lot of biopesticides are organic, but not all biopesticides are organic. There can be biopesticides that cannot be applied in an organic sense because of how they are formulated for whatever reason. And then also all of the organic herbicides or pesticides that are out there, not all of those are biopesticides either. So biopesticides operates as its own little classification that can interact in different ways with an organic certification or a different type of pesticide. What binds or biopesticides altogether, again, is they are naturally derived with specific use cases and therefore specific tools for gardeners out there. So, when to use a biopesticide? They are great tools when timed correctly. Really best used early in pest pressure and as part of a routine, not a rescue. So if I were heading out to my garden right now, I know I have a rose bush that is infested with aphids. And this photo on the right looks like an aphid infestation. So there's a whole lot of aphids here. They're clumped all together. For me and my roses, I'm not choosing to spray a pesticide on them at this point in time. But if I wanted to, if this was the situation I was looking at, not a good time to use a biopesticide overall. There's other pesticidal tools that would do a better job for a couple different reasons. One, biopesticides, because of how their mode of action, so think back to the peak graphic. They are good at very specific instances in either a pest life stage or they rely on a certain application method. So biopesticides are your there's a problem coming. It's not out of control. Let me get ahead of it. Let me take some vitamin C. Let me drink some extra water for my body. It's that for the plants that you want to take care of and are in your charge. Early in pest pressure as part of a routine, something that helps keep plants healthy when you know that there's pests in the area that you want to get ahead of. So instead of seeing this, you may only see one or two aphids. You may have an infestation that you knock down with a different sort of pesticide, and then you're able to come in and take out smaller colonies before they get established. Timing is the big one that I see when there's a claim that biopesticides don't work uh, because they're not your knockdown. They're not going to solve the big infestation issues. They're coming alongside to support your plants just as they're starting to get sick or those pests are starting to establish. Using biopesticides effectively, it's not a whole lot different than using your conventional pesticides or other pesticides besides the timing. You always want to start with identifying the pest correctly. If you don't know the pest, there's some resources out there online. Specifically for biopesticides, they often don't have a large range that they're going to kill. They're going to kill certain things that are on the label. That's where in step two, once you've identified the pest, really important to match the pest to, or match the product to the pest. There's a resource from UC IPM I've highlighted here. It's called the Pesticide Active Ingredients Database. That is a great way to find out kind of what products and active ingredients are out there for the pest that you have identified. The label is another great resource in understanding what this pesticide can be used to kill. And when it comes to biopesticides, as with all pesticides, they are designed to kill. So following the label instructions, that is the law, is essential. The part that I think is often skipped over with biopesticides is what we call coverage is essential. And coverage is the amount of product or the amount of solution that you are putting onto the plant or towards the pest that you want to control. These cards on the lower right, they're yellow with some blue spotches on them. The card themselves are yellow, and when you spray water, so you can think of a squirt bottle, on the left one, with only a few blue dots, that might be just one squirt of a squirt bottle. Where if you do it two spritzes, you could get coverage. You have more blue dots all around. And if you do three, you may have increased coverage. When you have increased coverage, that's really important with a biopesticide because they often need to come in contact with the pest that you are trying to kill, or the pest needs to ingest it in the case of an insect. The pesticide needs to be in a droplet on that leaf, and then an aphid or whatever needs to come along and ingest that product. There's there's some conventional pesticides, for example, that coverage isn't as important because of the mobility of the pesticide. Most biopesticides need to come in contact with the pest or be ingested by the pest. So higher coverage, like in the sticky card on the right, I put some aphids over here, but you can imagine the blue is over the aphids. This photo on the right is going to have a much better chance at achieving efficacy or killing the pest that you want it to kill compared to this sticky card on the left. Also important to note as you're considering applications, like other pesticides, biopesticides are sometimes done foliarly, so spraying on the leaves. Sometimes you may put the pesticide into the soil where the roots are. And there's different application methods that biopesticides and all pesticides have. But it really is the coverage and the amount of water that is being placed on with the pesticide that is going to impact your efficacy. Coverage, coverage, coverage is very essential to get a good result in using your biopesticide. And then finally, like reapplying as needed. Check your label, check your reapplications. For some there, you may have heard of resistance, and that is when you almost apply a pesticide too much, and then pests evolve as they do and are no longer killed by that pesticide. Because of the multiple modes of action contributing to pest kill, from what I know of right now, there's still no single documented instance of resistance to a biopesticide. So reapplying as the label allows, adding biopesticides into that routine when you know a pest is present, is really highly encouraged. Sometimes if you know there's aphids and they're super small, if you can get one, two, three aphids that you may not see, but you know are very likely there, that is when a biopesticide as part of a routine can really help you. So with tools, I just wanted to shout out the other tools that are around that you should be considering. Biopesticides aren't going to solve everything for you. No pesticide will solve everything for you in your pest issues. You can combine them with healthy soil. Healthier plants help combat pests. Crop rotation, beneficial insects, and natural enemies. Specifically with biopesticides, because of their narrow focus, oftentimes are really encouraging those insects that are helping us. They're going to stay alive. And then finally, continued monitoring and scouting. Biopesticides aren't going to be able to come in and really solve many infestations when the problem is so big and so obvious. But if in your garden, in your houseplants, wherever you are trying to grow healthy plants, you're monitoring and scouting and pest identification, that enables you to use biopesticides with good efficacy and safety. So success with a biopesticide really looks like using what the lab has given us in that bottle, understanding what that pesticide is and some of the science behind it, and then incorporating it in to manage pest levels, helping have healthy plants with fewer emergency sprays. There's different tools out there if you look at a plant and it needs a lot of help, ultimately contributing to a balanced ecosystem where we say insects are going to be there, pests are going to be there. How do we manage with biopesticides? Not necessarily needing to eliminating everything that's there. Biopesticides often will not get you to zero insects. And importantly, and sometimes hard when you want those instant results, biopesticides often do not have those instant results. Their modes of action are complex and they take time to take effect. So whether it's working on preventing an insect from shedding its exoskeleton so it can grow, that insect needs time to grow and then it won't be able to. Or whether it's activating the immune response within a plant. The mode of action from that biopesticide needs to reach the plant with thorough coverage. And then the plant has to kick into high gear and activate its different immune systems. All of that takes some time, which is why instant results really shouldn't be expected with biopesticides. Biopesticides, they're ultimately a tool in the toolbox. There's a lot of work that I know that goes into developing them, a lot of understanding of the efficacy of them and their efficacy profile, of the safety profile of them. They're a great tool that's out there as long as you understand them. If you're using them thoughtfully, as with any pesticide, and ultimately pairing them with good management practices that will leave your home, your garden, and your plants in hopefully a much better and healthier and pest-free environment. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Sherry and Belinda, and we'll get some questions going here shortly.
Thank you so much, Samantha. It was a great introduction to biopesticides and a discussion on how to effectively use them in a home garden.